This is crazy. So Gypsy Rose Blanchard's ex-boyfriend is finally speaking out. The man who fatally attacked her mother and refers to himself as Mr. Smiley. He wrote a bizarre email to the Post last week explaining his side of the story just days after this new documentary aired. Nicholas Gojon started the letter by saying, "I want people to know that I am not lost in the ether of all of what is going on with whom shall not be named. I am just being patient for my true time to speak." When he was asked about Gypsy's newfound fame, marriage, and what life has been like behind bars, he only said, "I must be conscientious about my decisions. A lot of these questions will be answered in the foreseeable interview at the right time, which is not now." In the email, he seemed to be polite and almost childlike, using smiley faces about 6 times. At the end of the letter, he wrote, "Stay positive, healthy, and safe." Nicholas has been silent since Gypsy was sprung from prison on parole last month for convincing him to take out her mother following years of medical trauma that she inflicted upon Gypsy. But of course, she wasn't actually unwell, and her mother had been lying about her symptoms. Experts believe Dee Dee's behavior stemmed from the disorder called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Because she wanted to be a caretaker, she lied about and actually induced illness in her daughter. The truth about the situation only came out after Gypsy arranged for an online boyfriend to take out Dee Dee in 2015. By now, many people know about these crimes, which were covered in the HBO documentary Mummy, Dad and Dearest and the Hulu TV series The Act, starring Joey King. Before the incident, Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, forced her to pretend that she suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and a list of other very serious illnesses. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. Since her release from prison after serving less than 10 years, Gypsy has done a series of high-profile interviews along with her husband, Ryan Anderson, who she met while she was in prison. And she's been very active on social media recently, which has been met with mixed reactions. In a comment on Instagram, she gushed about her love life and defended her husband from backlash, writing, "They jealous because you are rocking my world every night. Yeah, I said it, the D is fire. Happy wife, happy life." Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been a prisoner twice in her life, once as an inmate and before that at the hands of her mother. After serving over 8 years behind bars, she is now ready to start fresh and experience freedom for the first time. But she felt that she has to set the record straight about her past before she could actually step into her future. In her new docuseries, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, the now 32-year-old woman tells her own story in her own words. She said, "I see myself today as someone trying to come out of prison and start a new life. I'm just trying to remake myself or reinvent myself into something that my family could be proud of, that my husband could be proud of." She says that she doesn't think she's quite there yet, but she's liking this new version of herself. Gypsy's story has blanketed the media, and everyone from true crime bloggers to court TV anchors have dissected the case. When talking about this documentary, she said, "I wanted to put out something that was very accurate. I wanted to put out something that was the truth. So much of what has already been put out there was either by people that honestly didn't know the ins and outs of my case or my life." Gypsy explained that ultimately she is the source because it happened to her, and no one has a right but herself to share her story. She now feels that she's emotionally stable enough to talk about it, and she doesn't want to keep being haunted by the past. She also spoke up about the biggest misconception in her case, which was the way that her mother was portrayed. She said, "I think people tend to forget, or maybe they don't even know, the reason why my mom was able to snowblind the doctors so much and the community is because she was so friendly. In the shows, they're portraying her as mean all of the time, and that is not how she was." According to Gypsy, she was actually very charming and very relatable. She would give a hug to anyone. She liked to cook for people, and her personality was bubbly and friendly to the outside world. But then, of course, we didn't really get to see what happened behind closed doors, where she was a different person entirely. And now, even though she's trying desperately to move on with her life, there are so many questions that remain. Gypsy explained that she still has questions about all the surgeries that she's had, since she hasn't even had a chance to look at her own medical records in full detail, and doesn't fully understand what was done to her medically, all the procedures that she had as a child, because her mother lied to doctors. She also has questions for her own family about things that happened before she was even born. In the docuseries, there's a number of times when family or professionals could have stepped in and removed Gypsy from her mother's care, and she's now speaking about why that never happened. She feels a big part of it is that there were people that had suspicions, including her family, but nobody wanted to rock the boat. It wasn't brought up to other people, and it just wasn't talked about. So people kept their suspicions to themselves just for fear of upsetting her mother, and ultimately pushing them away as friends. She does believe that certain doctors also had their suspicions, but at the end of the day, it also has to do with money. She said they were making a lot of money off of her, and in their profession, that came first. At one point though, CPS did come to her house to check on her, but they were asking the wrong questions, saying things like, show me your arms, show me your legs, checking for bruises. And at that point, her mum had never actually hit her. So of course, CPS didn't end up doing anything. They just came the one time and then they closed the file. Unfortunately, this visit caused Dee Dee to become increasingly more paranoid. She actually went as far as to remove the doorbell on the door because she was just so worried about them coming back. Now you might be wondering, did Gypsy hold any grudges against her family members for not removing her from her mother? Well, not really. She says that she doesn't hold anything against anyone now, and she's told the rest of her family that she doesn't blame them because she was so young when it all happened. Also, they were just as much in the dark as everyone else was. Now, onto a more positive part of her life, the fact that she's happily married and absolutely adores her husband. Ryan Anderson explained that his life after her release has also been a whirlwind. Quote, I've waited for this girl to come out for so long, and now she's home. It feels great to have her here. The support we've been getting from people has been tremendous. I can't thank people enough for everything. They love my wife just as much as I do. Ryan explained that there are many things he's looking forward to in their new life, like just being a normal married couple. Although for him, the most challenging part is when people make comments out of context and they run with it, like making TikToks about something that he might have said, except he feels that they took it the wrong way. In this way, everything that he says is under a microscope, and it's one of those things that he's just not used to. He does feel overwhelmed sometimes. And Gypsy said for her, she's just coming out of prison after 8.5 years, and everyone is well aware of her story before that. But she's still very new to social media, and she's on a learning curve right now. So when she comments or even likes someone's post online, she still has to realize that it would be seen by millions of people. And the rewarding side of that though is that she has this huge platform which she can use for good. In that way, she says it's kind of like a superpower. She was asked why she thinks Gen Z is obsessed with her on social media. And in response to that, she said, I'm coming into this brand new. I feel like I'm a new baby bird on the internet. I don't even know how to do all of the emojis. I think they relate to me in a sense because I'm coming out and experiencing things for the first time. So the things that Gypsy is doing now, she really should have been doing as a teen, but obviously she didn't get the chance to do that. So all of this is just a first time experience for her, which is where the appeal might be. The fact that she's learning about her identity while Gen Z is learning about theirs too. At this point, the reporter brings up the fact that she used to love cosplay and dressing up a lot before she went to prison. In response to that, she said, looking at old pictures of me wearing different costumes and stuff, even though the interest is there, I can't help but have a small part of me that still feels like when I put on a costume and put back in that time. But that's just something that she's going to have to work through with a therapist, because she says that she still has a lot of triggers that might be extremely subtle, and that could potentially be one of them. Ryan said that she probably wore those cosplay outfits and costumes to get out of the current life that she was living with her mother. So it was kind of like an escape. But she loves who she is now as a woman and as a person. Gypsy agreed with this and said, even though I've got a major interest in cosplay and everything, it's beautiful to look at, but I don't feel the need to change my identity whereas I did before. That interest in cosplay is actually how she met her ex-boyfriend, who, as we know, would eventually carry out the attack on her mother. So in 2011, Gypsy tried to get away from Dee Dee by running away with a man that she'd met at a science fiction convention, but she soon tracked them down via mutual friends. According to Gypsy, she then smashed her computer and physically restrained her to the bed after they returned home. She eventually managed to get back online and joined a Christian dating site where she met Nicholas. She told him the truth about her mother's actions and ended up asking him to take out Dee Dee so they could be together. In June of 2015, he came to her house and committed the crime while Gypsy waited with her ears covered in the bathroom. The two of them then returned to his home in Wisconsin, where they were eventually found by police. After the events of that day, many people who'd known Gypsy wondered why she had gone so far as to completely remove her mother from the equation. Since she could walk, she could simply expose her lies by standing up in public. But Gypsy has been conditioned to think that no one would believe her. She said, I couldn't just jump out of the wheelchair because I was afraid and I didn't know what my mother would do. I didn't have anyone to trust. The fact was that she had spent her entire life being controlled and monitored by her mother. She wasn't allowed to go to school. Although she had normal intelligence, Dee Dee told everyone that her daughter had a mental age of someone much younger. When they were out in public, Dee Dee constantly held Gypsy's hand and squeezed it when she wanted her daughter to be quiet. Experts in Munchausen syndrome by proxy said that her life was completely and totally controlled by her mother, to the point where it could be compared to a hostage situation. And in that way, the crime that occurred was just her trying to gain an escape from this horrible situation. So what do you think about Gypsy Rose Blanchard now that she's been released from prison? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.